Okay, so let's hope that maybe the quality could be better. So today I will use my iPad to do annotations so that it'll be easier. If I write on my whiteboard, maybe those who absent might not be able to see. So let me try and see if it works. Okay. Okay, so let's begin then. Okay, so for today's class, the tutorial 3, okay, we are going to learn about demand and supply. Okay, so we are going to learn about graph, and at the same time, what we are going to focus on will be on price factor and non-price factors for both demand and also supply. Yeah, so therefore, so we get started with demand first. Okay, okay, so first of all, let's have a look into demand. The first thing you need to know about demand is the definition itself. Okay, so what is the meaning of demand? How do you define demand? Okay, so demand means, okay, the quantity of goods and services that consumers, okay, that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices per period of time, ceteris paribus. Okay, so I'll explain to you. So first of all, when we define demand, there are two main keywords, which is the willingness and the ability to buy. So that means that the demand itself must be backed up by purchasing power. Today, you may want to buy a luxurious car, buy a Mercedes, but the thing is that that's your willingness to buy. You may not have the money to buy. So therefore, that is not a demand. So a demand must be backed up by purchasing power. Okay, so therefore, you must be willing and able to buy. That's the two main keywords. Okay, so when you define the demand itself. Okay, and what do we mean by ceteris paribus? Okay, so this is an economics terms. So ceteris paribus means that we assume all other things remain equal. Okay, assuming all other factors are equal. That means we remove all other factors. We assume that the factors are fixed. Today, right, when there's a change in quantity demanded, it could be due to a lot of factors. It could be due to because people change their preference, people change their taste because of advertising and so on. There could be so many factors affecting quantity demanded. But today, I just want to see, okay, how is the quantity demanded responded to it when there is a change in price. So I just want to see today, if I were to change the price, how it affects the quantity demanded. Vice versa, how I reduce the price, how it affects the quantity demanded. I don't want to care about all other factors. So I want to remove all the noise, okay, all the noise that have an impact on the quantity demanded itself. So therefore, we call ceteris paribus, assuming all other factors remain equal or are equal. Okay, that means that we do not want to take into account of all those factors. So ceteris paribus, just in case if it comes out, maybe they might ask you explain with an example for on this concept. Okay, how do you use an example to show the concept of ceteris paribus? Okay, so it basically means assume all other factors are equal or remain equal. Okay, so now we look into the graph. Okay, so first of all, we talk about demand curve. Okay, we have y-axis and at x-axis. Okay, so this is my origin. On my y-axis is the price in terms of dollar sign. Okay, and on my x-axis is quantity. Okay, so for example, initially when the price is very high at $10, for example, let's say we look into an item over here, which is an ice cream. So when the price of the ice cream is $10, there's only one person who is willing to buy. Okay, when the price of the ice cream fall to, let's say, $8, there are about two people who are interested to buy. And when the price fall to $6, okay, there are about three people who are interested to buy. And when the price falls to, let's say, $4, there are about four people who are interested to buy. So what you can see over here, the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. So you can see there is a negative relationship or inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. And we call this as the law of demand. Okay, so therefore the graph itself will be a downward sloping graph like this. Okay, a downward sloping curve. This is what we call as the demand curve. Okay, so therefore now we form the relationship, the negative relationship. Okay, we call this as a law of demand. Okay, so you can see here today the change in the quantity demanded over here is because of the change in price. Now bear in mind with the use of the words here. When I refer to price factor, so this one that we're referring to is what we call as the price factor. Now, when we talk about price factor, there is no shift at all. It's only about the movement along the straight line. No shift, but only movement along the curve, movement of the points. Movement along the straight line. Okay, so no shift at all. And bear in mind with the use of the words here, when I refer to price factor, I will use the word quantity here. Okay, later on when I talk about non-price factors, I will not use the word QD. I will use the word D. So bear in mind, when I use the word QD, quantity demanded, as you can see over here, this one, QD, I'm referring to price factor. Okay, later on when I do not write the word Q, I just really write D there, demand, that means it's non-price factor. I'm referring to the shift. Okay, so if I use the word QD means price factor in which there is no shift but only the movement along the curve. Why? Because that's what we call as price factor. Today, quantity demanded change because of the change in price. Okay, be aware of the use of words, because later on when it comes to your assignments and your finals and your exams, okay, when you write QD, I'll expect you to refer to price factor. When you write demand, I'm expecting you to write the shift. Okay, so it carries different meanings to some extent. Now, one of the exam questions usually they will ask this. Pay attention to this question. For example, I will ask you explain. Okay, explain the inverse relationship or explain the negative relationship of the law of demand. Now, when this question comes out, what the students will write? Students will go and write, oh, the inverse relationship of law of demand is a higher price result in lower quantity demanded. A lower price result in higher quantity demanded, which they use this one to explain. But that's self-explanatory. That one is not explanation. That one you're just telling people what is law of demand, in which everyone knows. So therefore, that's not the answer for that question. So I repeat, if today the question asks you to explain what is law of demand or explain the negative relationship between price and quantity demanded, do not go and write, oh, a higher price result in lower quantity demanded. A lower price result in higher quantity demanded. That's not the answers. So what is the answers then? Today, if I were to explain law of demand, okay, I can use two terms over here, okay, which is income effect and substitution effect. Remember, I'm talking about effect, not the factor. Later, we'll talk about factor, then only it will have a shift. Here, I'm talking effect, no shift. I'm just using the effect to explain what is law of demand. Okay, not factor, I repeat. Okay, or else you might get confused later on. Okay, so what is income effect? So let me explain to you what is income effect first. Okay, income effects means change in quantity demanded due to a change in price, okay, that affects the purchasing power. That's the meaning or the definition of income effect. Very important. This one usually they might want to ask you about the law of demand explanations. So when you explain income effect and substitution effect, you must explain what does it mean. Okay, so let me explain to you what is income effect. The keywords of income effect is it links to purchasing power. Means what? For example, right, today you buy the ice cream, and ice cream costs you $10. Okay, now there's a fall in the price of ice cream to $5, for instance. So with the same amount of money that you have, with the same amount of income that you have, will you be able to buy more ice cream right now? Yes. So that's what we call as income effect. You have higher purchasing power right now, not because you're earning more, not because you're earning more here, it's because the price becomes cheaper. You have higher purchasing power right now. So I repeat, income effect here, I'm saying that today you are able to buy more goods and services, not because you have more income, but because the price has fallen down. So with the same amount of money that you have, you're able to buy more. Okay, that's called income effect. Okay, so that's the explanations. Now, what is substitution effect? Substitution effect means the change in quantity demanded due to a change in price, okay, that makes the product more or less expensive than the other. Okay, today when you talk about substitution effect, you are comparing between two goods. Okay, maybe because one product in terms of the prices has fallen down, so it becomes cheaper for you to buy. That's called substitution effect. So here the keyword is the change in price that makes the product more or less expensive than the other. Okay, so example, I give you a very simple example here. Okay, let's say now I look into Coke. Okay, let's say right here. Let's say I talk about Coke and Pepsi. So assuming these two are substitute goods, okay? If there is a fall in the price of Coke, what will happen to the quantity demand for Coke? It will increase. Why? Because it's cheaper. So people will substitute Pepsi with Coke. So the quantity demanded for Coke will increase. This is the one I'm referring to. This is the price factor. Later on, when I look into non-price factors, then only I look into Pepsi. Now, I do not want to look into Pepsi first. Okay, so I just want you to look into on the left-hand side over here. When price of Pepsi has, when price of Coke has fallen down, the quantity demanded for Coke has increased. This is the price factor I'm referring to. So the increase in the quantity demanded for Coke is because of the change in the price of the product itself. This is what I call as price factor. So therefore, these two effects here are super important for you to define the law of demand. Okay, so I repeat, when the question asks you about law of demand, do not go and write the inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. There's something that everyone already know. Okay, what you need to explain is the two effects there, income and substitution effects. So that basically sums up the part on price factor. Okay, then we are going to move on to the non-price factors. So you can see that price factor is basically a factor that's caused by the price itself. So that's why the word suggests price factor, right? So now the next one that we are going to look into would be non-price factors. Okay, so the next one that we are going to look into would be if you need more time, let me know so that I can go back to that. Non-price factors. Okay, when we talk about non-price factors, there are a lot of points. So like for example, okay, let's talk about the first one first. It's called income. Income factor, not the income effect here. Income factor. Now remember when I talk about factors, it also means determinants. Okay, determinants of what? Determinants of the shift in demand curve. So bear in mind, because later on in your demand and supply, you will learn a lot of determinants. So when I say determinants, it's not always referring to non-price factors. Because in next week class, you're going to learn about elasticity. There are also determinants of elasticity as well, as in what are the factors that makes a product to be more elastic or more inelastic. But here I'm talking about determinants of what? Of the shift. That means what causes the shift in the demand curve. Bear in mind with the use of words. Okay, either one is going to be coming out anyway. So make sure you don't confuse it. Determinants here, I'm talking about the shift. So we call it as non-price factors. The first one is income. Okay, so income, I can put in a short form called YD. Okay, YD is the disposable income. We're talking about disposable income. Here, we are saying that the money that you earn. Okay, so for example, let's say today when I say your income increases means what? Your purchasing power has increased. Okay, that means what? That means you get richer, right? So let's look into the impacts on two different goods. We have normal goods. Normal goods are the goods that we consume in our daily life. Okay, so today when you are richer right now, you have more money, will you consume more normal goods? Yep, so the demand for normal goods increases, or we call it as it shift rightwards. Okay, so speaking of the graph, so again, I can show on the graph itself, we have y-axis, okay, and x-axis. Okay, so this is my origin, this is my price in terms of dollar sign. In exam, if you really forgot how to label, at least just put the dollar sign over there. I will still give you marks, no worries. Okay, and this is quantity. It's quite standardized for your micro. Okay, and then after that, you have your demand curve like this. Okay, this is the demand curve that we learned just now. So assuming at this price, at this quantity initially. So for example, at the price of $10, okay, there are 8 people who are interested to buy your product. So this is the initial point, point A. Now, if I say the demand curve shift rightwards, okay, like this from D to D1, make sure you draw that arrow, okay, that means the price remains the same, but more is being consumed, more is being demanded, okay, so maybe from 8 to 10. So therefore, here we can say when the demand curve shifts rightwards, use the word right and left, right or left. Do not use the word up and down. You are going to get confused. Why? Because in the upcoming chapters, you are going to learn about elasticities. So elasticity can be horizontal line or vertical line. So it's going to be very confusing if you use the word up and down. Use left or right. Okay. If it shifts rightwards, means demand increases. Demand increases. Okay. When it shifts leftwards, means demand decreases. That means demand is going down. Okay, so like this one, the black color curve here from point A to point B is basically demand increases. It shifts rightwards. On the other hand, if I were to show the demand decreases, that means that it will go leftwards, go to the green color line to this D2. For example, at this point here from A to C, and then at the price of $10, now there are only 6 people who are interested to purchase. Okay, so what you can see over here is that today, right, the demand here, the quantity here changes, but it has nothing to do with the price. Why? Because the price is fixed. So it is due to other factors we call as non-price factors. Like one of it just now is called income. When you earn more income, you buy more of normal goods, and therefore the demand for the normal goods increases, in which it shifts rightwards from point A to point B. Okay, now what about inferior goods? What is inferior goods? Inferior goods means lousy products, cheap products like cup noodles, those unhealthy foods. So today when you get richer already, do you still want to buy a lot of inferior goods? No, right? So the demand for inferior goods will shift leftwards. Okay, so today in exam, if they were to ask you to define normal goods and inferior goods, how to define? You can just say normal good is a good that has a normal good is a good that the demand will increase when income increases. Okay, you can use the relationship here to explain the good itself. Or for example, if I were to say what is inferior good is a good, okay, that has a fall in demand when income increases. Okay, that's how you define the goods itself. Okay, so another example, okay, if today I look into a scenario where the income decreases, that means that purchasing power has fallen down, that means you become poorer. So what will be the impacts on the demand for the normal goods then? So since you become poorer already, what happens is you will demand less of normal goods, but you will demand more of inferior goods. The demand will shift rightwards. You are poorer, so you consume more of lousy products or cheap products. Okay, so therefore these are some notes over here when we talk about income, so you can see it from a very detailed analysis here. Okay, so again, when you define normal goods and inferior goods, you can just use the relationship of income and the demand of the product itself. Okay, so therefore there's the first factor, income. The second factor is basically what we call as a preference or taste. Okay, so like the consumer's preference and taste are very volatile. Today you may love to buy something, but the next day you may not want the item anymore. And you know that there are a lot of factors that can influence your taste and preference. Like for example, advertisements. When you see an influencer endorsing a product on advertisements, that can make you to buy the product. So therefore, preference and taste is basically the second factor that could have an impact on the demand curve itself. So maybe now, like for example, people are very health conscious. Okay, people are very health conscious, and therefore, what happened is the demand for the organic food, healthy food, gym, okay, all these will have an increase in demand. Yeah, so it will shift rightwards. Okay, now this one is very easy to understand. The third one that usually students confuse is this one. Prices of related goods and services. Oh, preference and taste. Yeah, preference and taste. Okay, so the number three one is a bit confusing. Students might ask, you say non-price factor leh? How come this one got prices of related goods and services one got price eh? Why? Okay, because we say non-price factor means we are not referring to the price of the product itself. We are looking into the prices of other products. So here we look into the prices, but other products, related goods and services. So here we look into two products over here in which it is substitutes and complementary goods. Do not confuse between the word substitutes and the substitution effects that we learned just now. This one we are talking about non-price factors. Okay, so substitutes and complements. Two scenarios. Okay. Now I know this is confusing, so I will explain to you through a very simple method. You can use that for exam. You will never make mistake anymore. Trust me, it works. Okay. So first of all, let's look into substitutes. So first we look into prices of other goods and services. We look into the substitute scenario. Okay, so for example, what is substitute first? You need to know the definition. Substitute means the alternative goods and services that can satisfy the same wants and needs. It doesn't matter which brand you go for, it will still give you the same satisfaction. So how do you define substitution? How do you define substitutes? Alternative goods and services that can satisfy the same wants and needs. Okay, so let's have a look into some examples here. Let's say assuming, okay, let's look into the scenario of Coke and Pepsi, assuming these two are substitutes. So today, if the price of Coke has increased, do you still want to buy Coke? No, right? The quantity demanded for Coke has fallen down. But is this a price factor or non-price factor? This is a price factor. Very good. So that's not my concern. I want to see how the change in the price of Coke affects the demand for Pepsi. So since now Coke becomes so expensive, no one is willing to purchase Coke anymore. So people will go and buy Pepsi. So the demand for Pepsi will increase. Demand for Pepsi will shift rightwards. So what can you see over here? Today, the demand for Pepsi increased. Does it have anything to do with the price of Pepsi itself? No, it's because of the change in the price of Coke. Nothing to do with the price of Pepsi at all. So this is my concern, and this is what we call as the non-price factor. Okay, the demand for Pepsi increase has nothing to do with the price of Pepsi, but because of the price of Coke. Okay, so this is the non-price factor. Okay, another one, let's look into the scenario of complementary goods. So what is complementary goods? Complementary goods means goods that have a joint demand or that have a derived demand. Joint demand means what? The more you use product A, the more you use product B. It must be used together. That's called complementary goods. Okay, you can just define as simple as both goods must be used together. The more you use one, the more you have to use the others. It has a joint demand. The demand for one is derived from the consumption of the other. Okay, so let's have a look into examples. Let's have a look into cars. Okay, when you have a cars, then you have to consume petrol, right? So we look into cars and petrol. Okay, so let's say the price of car has fallen down. Will people buy more cars? Yes, the quantity demanded for cars will increase. But this is the price factor, not my concern. I want to see how is that a change in the price of car affects the demand for petrol. So since now more people buying cars, they will have to drive, they have to travel. So therefore, the demand for petrol will also increase. Okay. So therefore, today the demand for petrol increase. Does it have anything to do with the price of petrol? No, it's because of the change in the price of cars. That's called non-price factors. Hope this can be a clearer for you, right? Okay. Now let's use one more example. Today I look into printer and cartridge. Cartridge is the ink, the ink. Okay. Today, when the price of printer has increased, do you still want to buy printer? No, quantity demanded for printer will fall. And therefore, the demand for cartridge will also fall because less people using printer right now. Excuse me. So therefore, you can see that today, the demand for cartridge fall has nothing to do with the price of cartridge, but because of the price of printer. Again, non-price factor. So this is how you analyze. You will never make mistake. Okay. Now, the fourth factor is called population or demographic. Like for example, now if the population in the country has increased, then the demand for goods and services will increase. Can. Oh, you want to write down, is it? Can. Oh, definition of substitutes. Oh, okay. I write here. Substitutes, alternative goods and services that can satisfy the same wants and needs. Okay. Complementary good. Complements means yeah, correct. Okay. So both goods that must be consumed together. Or you can say goods with joint demand. Okay, joint demand. Okay, that means the more you use product A, the more you use product B. You can write that as well. Okay, just now we talk about non-price factors, population. The more population in the country, then the more demand for the products. Or demographic, like for example, if the country is overpopulated with elderly people, then the demand for healthcare will increase. So you can see today the demand for products and the healthcare increase has nothing to do with the price, but because of the demographics. Okay. And the last factor for the demand is what we call as expected future prices. Okay, that you expect the prices of the product to increase in the future. So what will you do as a consumers right now? You will buy more, right? So the demand for the product will increase for now. Yeah, so that sums up the parts you need to know for the non-price factors for the demand curve. So I move on because I have quite a number of things to cover for today's class. So let's continue. Okay, now we have done with demand. Okay, we have done with this demand here. Now what's next is supply. Okay. Okay, so we talk about supply. Okay, the first thing you need to know is the definition. The supply means the quantity of goods and services that producers are willing and able to supply, okay, at different prices per period of time, okay, ceteris paribus. Okay, so again, what you need to know is two keywords: willingness and ability to supply. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, again, we are going to look into the price factor and non-price factor. Okay, price factor. So first of all, when we talk about price factor, we look into the product price of the product itself. Again, we have y-axis and x-axis. Okay, this is the price in dollar sign, zero quantity. Okay, and for example, now when you talk about supply, you have to think yourself as the producers. Think from the perspective of producers. When the product is only $2, okay, maybe you only want to provide 1 unit of the product. When the price is $4, okay, you are interested to produce 2 units of the products. Okay, when the price is $6, you are even willing to produce more of the product, up to 3 quantities. When the price is $8, you are willing to provide up to 4 units of the products. So you can see that there is an upward, okay, upward sloping demand curve, supply curve. Okay, so the supply curve is an upward sloping. Okay, so you can see a higher price result in higher quantity supply. A lower price result in a lower quantity supply. Okay, so what can we see over here is a positive or a direct relationship, okay, between the price and the quantity supply. So we call as law of supply. Okay, so bear in mind with the use of the words over here, when I use the word Q quantity, that means I'm referring to price factor. Okay, one more thing I forgot to mention just now. When I say quantity supply increases, it's called extension in quantity supply. Okay, when quantity supply falls down, means contraction in quantity supply. Okay, same with just now this one, demand. Okay, when I say quantity demanded increases, means extension in quantity demanded. When quantity demanded goes down, means contraction. Contraction in quantity demanded. Okay, just some terms. Okay, so same here. When quantity supply increase, we call as extension in quantity supply. When quantity supply decrease, it means contraction in quantity supply. Yeah. So we talk about price factor. There's no shift. It's only the movement along the straight line. Okay. And how you define this law of supply over here? Like just now, law of demand, you have 2 effects. What about law of supply? Same thing here. To explain this positive relationship, you have to explain with the use of profit incentive, profit effect. Okay, you as a producer, you are profit oriented, and therefore the higher the price, the higher incentive for you to sell the product. Why? You'll be able to earn more. Okay, so that's called as profit incentive to explain the positive relationship between the price and the quantity supply itself. Yeah, so that's the price factor. So price factor has no shift, but it's just only referring to the price, referring to the movement along the straight line. Okay, caused by the price itself. So when we talk about price factor, means the change in the quantity supply is caused by the price of the product itself. Okay, so on the other hand, we have non-price factor. Okay, again, when I say non-price factors, means what? Means determinants of the shift. Okay, determinants of shift in supply curve. Okay, so first of all, again, I can draw my y-axis and x-axis. Remember to do labeling all the time, yeah, when you draw this in your exam. So this is my origin, this is my price, a dollar sign. Choose one, okay? Either put price or dollar sign, up to you, I don't mind. Okay, and quantity. Okay, so you know that supply curve is upward sloping curve like this. Okay, so assuming when the price is at here at $10, okay, you as the producers are interested to supply up to an amount of 8 units, for example. Okay, now let's say because of some other factors, it costs you to supply more. So supply increases. Okay, that means the price still the same, but more is being supplied up to 10 units, for example. Okay, from point A to point B. Okay, so when again, remember it from left or right. Okay, so when it shifts rightwards, means what? Means supply increases. When it shifts leftwards, means what? Supply decreases. Okay, remember it as left or right. Okay, so if supply shift leftwards, okay, means what? Means that there is a fall in the supply. The price remain the same from A to C here. The price remain the same, but less is being supplied to 6 units. Okay, so therefore our concern is to find out what are the non-price factors then. Okay, so what are the factors? So if you refer to the notes just now, I have provided some non-price factors over here. Okay, like price of inputs. Price of inputs basically means the price of raw materials. Okay, your cost of production. So when there is a fall, okay, in the price of inputs, that means your raw materials has become cheaper, so it reduces your cost, so it increase your profitability, so you produce more, supply increases. It has nothing to do with the price of the product itself, but because of the cost. Second, technological change, like you have technological advancements, and therefore you can become more productive, you have lower cost, so therefore with the same amount of resources, you are able to produce more. Okay, so supply increases. Now the third one is a bit confusing. Prices of related goods in production. So this is a bit similar to the one, the substitutes and complement that we're talking about for demand. So let me explain to you in this one. Okay, so again, let's have a look into a scenario. Okay, so let's have a look into the third one, the prices of related goods. So now we're talking supply, that means you think yourself as the supplier from the perspective of producers. Okay, so first of all, we look into one scenario here. Let's say you are a producer, you can choose to produce two products, either corn or wheat. Now, if let's say, for example, the price of corn has increased, do you still want to produce corn? You want to produce corn or not when the price increase? You will ma, you are producer ma, correct or not? So it's more profitable for you to do so. Okay, so therefore when the price of corn increase, yes, you want to produce more corn, so the quantity supply of corn increases. So since now you produce more corn here, do you still want to produce wheat? So you do not want anymore, so the supply of wheat has fallen down, shift leftwards. So today the supply of wheat has reduced, not because of the price of wheat itself, but because of the price of corn. So this is what we call as the non-price factor. Okay, another example, let's say you are a farmer doing cattle farming. Let's say you do cattle farming. That means you keep calf lah, okay, keep calf, and then these cattle can be used for beef production and leather production. For example, the calf, the cattle itself, the meats of the cattle can be used for beef. Okay, can be used for the beef production, but the skin can be used for leather, for example. Okay, so let's say now we look into these two products here, beef, okay, and leather. Okay, when let's say the price of beef has increased, do you want to produce more beef? Yes, right? Quantity supply of beef has increased. Okay, now since you want to produce more beef, what happens is you will have to keep more cattle. So since you also have more cattle, can you use the skin of cattle to produce leather? You can, right? So the supply of leather has also increased. It shift rightwards. Okay, so therefore today the supply of leather increase has nothing to do with the price of leather, but because now you keep more cattle for the sake of producing more beef. Okay, so this is the price factors. Okay, the next factor is number of firms. When there are more firms in the market, that means there are more producers, so supply will increase. And the last one is expected future prices. If you are a producer and you foresee that the prices will increase in the future, then what will you do? You will keep the product right now first. You will stock the product and sell more in the future. So the supply for now will decrease. Supply decrease first, but increase in the future. Yeah. So those are the non-price factors for supply. So that sums up the recap that you need to know for your tutorial 3. Demand and supply, but focus more on price factor and non-price factors. Yeah. Yes. This one, you mean this one, P and QS. This one is the price factor. Okay, the price factor, no shift. Yeah. Only the one that we call left or right is because there's a shift. Yeah. On my left hand side is the price factor, on my right hand side is the non-price factors. Yeah, non-price factors. And the corn and weight also non-price factors. As long as there's a shift, it's already non-price factors. The moment I use the word S without the Q, QS means price factor. S is price factor. Yeah. Okay, all good. So let's have a look into questions then. Yes. Relationship. Relationship. Ceteris paribus. Yeah. Okay, so there's a summary of what we have covered just now. Okay, let's have a look into, in case if anyone taking photos, let's just wait for a while. Okay, let's have a look into question 1. So we are going to go through very quickly right now because whatever I go through just now in recap are basically already the answers that you need to know for your tutorial questions. Okay, question 1, what is demand? Definition. So what is the two words that I want to refer to? Willingness and the ability to buy. Okay. Question number 2, explain the reasons for the downward sloping curve of the demand curve itself by means of examples. So you can see this is how I twist the question a bit. Just now I say, explain the negative relationship of the law of demand. Okay, now I change this. Explain the reason why the demand curve is downward sloping. So that means what? That means I'm referring to the two effects. Remember, do not go and explain a higher price result in lower quantity demanded, a lower price result in higher quantity demanded. That is self-explanatory. Everyone already know. If you write, that students write though. Students wrote that in midterms last semester. Everyone got 0 because there's no answers. Everyone knows what is law of demand already. It's the inverse relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. So if you write that again, no mark. So what we want is substitution effect and income effect. Okay, so you write substitution effect and income effect and give examples. But here I did not write the examples, so you can think about the examples when you revise by yourself. Okay, but at least now you know the answers. Please bear in mind with this question, I believe it's either coming out in your midterms or your finals. Make sure you know how to explain these two effects. Okay, good. Question number 3. Okay, the market for smartphones has grown rapidly over the past few years due in part to the overwhelming success of the Apple iPhone. Following the successful launch of the iPhone in 2007, companies such as Samsung Galaxy, HTC M9, and LG have all introduced products to compete with the iPhone. A. Should iPhone and other smartphones can be considered as a substitute or complement? Explain why. So we talk about iPhone and other brands of the phones. So what is this? We are referring to substitutes. Very good. How do you explain substitutes? You can use the definitions. Okay, because smartphones are the alternative goods that can satisfy the same wants and needs. You use the definition to answer the questions. Remember that we covered the definition just now. Yeah. Okay. Question number B here. Illustrate and explain how would an increase in the price of iPhone affect the demand curve for other smartphones. So is this a price factor or non-price factor for this question? Non-price factor, very good. You are referring to two products over here. So therefore, okay, we look into iPhone, okay, and others smartphones. So now what happened is we use the same methods of how we see things just now. When there's an increase in the price of iPhone, so the price of iPhone has increased. So what happened is the quantity demanded for iPhone will go down. But this is the price factor. So this is not my concern. I want to see how the change the price of iPhone affect the other smartphones. So now people do not want to have iPhone anymore. They will buy other smartphones. So demand curve for other smartphones will increase, and this is my concern, and this is what we call as the non-price factors. And how do I show this in the diagram? Very simple. You draw your y-axis and x-axis. This is my origin, this is my price, this is my quantity demanded, and this is my demand curve. And then the price remain the same, okay, at this point A, at this price, at this quantity. Now it increases, shift rightwards with the arrow, okay, to point B, okay, at this new quantity. When I the labeling, okay, what I expect you to have is at least y-axis and x-axis you got, okay, A from point A to point B you got, okay, or you can replace it with the arrow also can. Demand, you label it, which one is new one, which one is the old one, that is enough. Okay. Okay, all good. So moving on to question number 4. Okay, so we have to talk about indicate whether each of the following situations will shift the demand curve or supply curve, okay, and provide respective diagrams. So I did not draw the diagram over here. I'm just providing the answers, the hints for you, so that you can try to think about how the graph is being drawn when you have time during your own revision. Question A, an increase in the number of firms in the market. More firms in the market, that means more suppliers. So we are referring to demand and supply. Supply law, okay, because you look into producers. So supply curve shift rightwards. Why? Because more firms, more suppliers, more producers. So supply increases. Yeah. So supply increase, does it have anything to do with the price of the product itself? No. It's because of the more suppliers. Second, a decrease in income and the goods is an inferior goods. Hey, remember we covered this just now? You have a fall in income, less purchasing power, you have become poorer. So will you consume more of lousy products like cup noodles, unhealthy products? You will. So demand curve shift rightwards. I go through quite fast because we have already covered those answers in the recap. Huh? Okay, but just that when you revise this one, try to think about the graph, how it's being drawn. Don't forget with the labeling. Okay, next one, a decrease in productivity. So productivity means efficiency. A fall in productivity means a fall in efficiency. So that means what? That means with the same amount of resources, you produce less. Not efficient already. Okay, your cost become higher. So profitability become less already. Okay, so now because you are not efficient already, your supply curve shift leftwards. You are not able to produce as much as before. Nothing to do with the price, but because of your own efficiency. Okay, so supply curve shift leftwards. Question number D, an increase in the price of a substitute goods. Okay, so again, this one we can do some annotations here. Okay, let me. Okay, uh, okay. So the question is an increase in the price of substitute goods. Okay, an increase in the price of substitute goods. Okay, so for example, an increase in the price of substitute. Okay, now that you can have two answers for this one. Okay, choose one only. Because this one, the factor here can affect demand and supply, right? That's why we learned about this factor just now in the non-price factors for demand and non-price factors for supply. So let's see how it affects demand. So for example, we look into tea and coffee, assuming these two are substitutes. Assuming, although I don't really think they are substitutes. Okay, so let's say price of tea has increased. Okay, because increase in price of substitutes. Okay, what happened to the quantity demanded for tea? It will fall, right? So therefore, people will substitute tea with coffee. So demand for coffee will increase. Okay, so the demand here increase. This is the answers. Demand increases. Demand shift rightwards. Non-price factors. Okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, we talk about supply. Okay, it can affect supply as well. For example, you are looking into two products, corn and wheat. When the price of corn has increased, do you want to supply more corn? Yes, quantity supply of corn increase. So do you still want to supply wheat? No, the supply will decrease, will shift leftwards. Okay, why? Because now you produce corn. So therefore, this is my answer. Okay, so you have two answers, either demand increase or supply decrease for this question. Okay, so this is why when you refer to the answers here, say demand curve shift rightwards or supply curve shift leftwards. Yeah, all non-price factors. Yeah. Price factor is only this one. If you want to talk about price factor, is this part. These two are price factors. Okay, so let's continue with the questions. I can just okay. The next question, okay, is an increase in the expected future price of a product. You expect the price of the product to increase in the future. Again, it can affect both. Why? Because if you refer to the notes just now, you can see expected future price appears on your demand, non-price factors, and also the supply for the non-price factors. So it can affect both. So let's look into the demand side first. When you expect the price of the product to increase in the future, what will you do now as a consumer? You will buy more. So demand increases, demand shift rightwards. And what about supply? If you are a producer, you want to sell more right now or more in the future? More in the future, right? Because it's more profitable. The price will increase in the future. So you want to sell more in the future. So now you sell less. So supply curve shift leftwards. Okay. Okay, and the last one, a decrease in the price of inputs. Okay, so very simple. So for the last one, a decrease in the price of inputs. So what we talk about inputs over here, inputs means your raw materials, your resources. So when there's a fall in the price of raw materials means what? There's a fall in the cost of production. So that means that you are able to have a higher profitability. Okay, so therefore you will supply more, supply increases. Okay, supply shift to the right, supply shift rightwards. Okay, so now back to our contents. Let me stop sharing this one and let me reclaim push. Okay, so here's the answers. Make sure you know how to draw the diagram, yeah? Because here I do not draw the diagram. So make sure you think about how to draw the diagrams when you revise. Okay. Question 5. Assume you own a restaurant in the heart of the New York City using examples to explain. For example, the first one, importance of determinants of supply for the day-to-day running of your restaurant. Determinants of supply means what? Non-price factors. Yeah. So how is that non-price factors helpful for you? So for example, you can simply pick any of the non-price factors that you learn and talk about the usefulness. So like for example, just now we talk about price of inputs. So price of inputs is about the cost. So if you can understand price of inputs, if you can understand the cost, then you will decide how much you want to produce per annum. So if let's say cost becomes higher, you will produce less. When cost becomes low, you will produce more to maximize your revenue. So the main answers here is it's important to keep costs low so that revenue can be maximized. Okay, so you just simply pick any of the non-price factors and explain it. Explain why is that important for your business. Okay, another question B over here, they ask you the importance of the determinants of demand or the non-price factors of demand, okay, for the expansion of business. Again, you're talking about how is the important to understand the non-price factors of the demand just now in helping you to expand your business. For example, you can say, once you can understand the preference and taste, okay, you can actually target the right group of people. Okay, so you can make changes to your product or service itself to match your customer needs. Okay, if you are able to identify their preference, their taste, okay, or if let's say you know your demographics and population well. For example, if your population, if the country has a high population of elderly people, then you can sell more of healthcare products, higher demand, right? Or if let's say your country has a lot of newborns, babies, then you can sell more toys. So you can customize the you can actually sell the products based on the markets, based on the customer needs. Or you can learn how to reach to more customers through what? Through advertising and promotions. Because why? Because advertising and promotion can have an influence on the preference and taste. Yeah. Okay, and question 6 over here. Okay, this one you refer to the notes because here is just some keywords here. Explain the difference between a change in demand. A change in demand is price factor or non-price factor? Change in demand. Non-price factor, very good. And change in quantity demanded. Price factor, yeah. So you just basically use price factor and non-price factor to explain about this part, okay, and draw the diagram. So basically you just refer to the notes just now, explain it, yeah. So or you can just use this table, but of course you don't have to go and explain all the non-price factors on the right hand side over here. You can just choose one or two, okay. But remember, when to explain price factor, you must have these two effects to explain the law of demand, and make sure you draw the graph as well. Okay, but this is the kind of theory questions. This is the kind of question that we call as theory questions. Nowadays, maybe not so common anymore because I believe your lecturer want to make it more applications. So maybe this kind of question could be a bit rare. Yeah, maybe it's more on applications really. But last time, this kind of question used to come out very often. Let's see how. Let's see how what will come out in your midterms and your finals then. Yeah. So these are the contents of tutorial 3. Okay, tutorial 4. Okay, so again, now let's have a tutorial 4 is short. Okay, so let me go through quickly with you. Okay, so let me stop sharing. Okay, and then I want to. Okay, so let me share my screen on my iPad again. Okay, so now okay, let's have a look into tutorial 4. So tutorial 4 is basically where you combine the demand curve and supply curve that you learned. Okay, so you are going to combine both demand and supply curve. Okay, so now Okay, this is my origin, this is my price, this is quantity demand quantity. Okay. Okay, so we have demand curve, we have supply curve. Okay, so once both intersects, it's called equilibrium. Okay, at this price, at this quantity. That's what we call as market equilibrium. Market equilibrium means what? My quantity demanded equals to quantity supply. Okay, so therefore we have the equivalent price here and equivalent quantity over here. So when I say equivalent price means the price at the equilibrium, and when I say equivalent quantity, that means the quantity at the equilibrium as well. Okay, now if let's say when the price is at high here, okay, let's say the price is here, when the price is high, okay, the quantity demanded is here, right? The quantity demanded is here, and the quantity supply is here. What is this situation? So you can see quantity supply is way larger than quantity demanded. Okay, we call it as a surplus. Too much people want to sell these items already until they cannot sell out surplus. Okay. On the other hand, when the price is low at here, okay, when the price is low, the quantity supply is here. Producers do not want to supply a lot, but the quantity demanded is here. Okay, a lot of people want to buy. So quantity demanded way larger than quantity surplus. Okay, so this is what called as shortages. Shortage. Okay, so what's next is we are going to look into some scenarios. Okay, so let's pick any of the scenarios here. Okay, so for example, okay, okay, let's say now, so tutorial 4 is about applications. It's all about applying what we learned just now, applications. Okay, okay, so let's do one applications here. Okay, so let's say now first scenario, a rise in taxes on products. Now remember, if I say taxes, taxes usually affects on producers unless I say income tax. If it's income tax, then different. Okay, so never mind, we took that as an example as well. A rise in income tax. Okay, so different. One is on producers and one is on consumers. Income tax on households. And another one, provision of subsidies. Okay, so three scenarios we are going to look into. Okay, so first of all, a rise in taxes on products means what? Means that now producers have to pay more taxes. So the cost of production will increase and therefore they will supply less. Okay, supply shift leftwards. So you draw at this y-axis, x-axis, origin, quantity, price. Okay, this is a demand curve. Okay, and this is the supply curve. This is my origin. Okay, a rise in taxes on products. Okay, costs become higher already, so they will supply less. Okay, so supply will shift leftwards like this. Okay, so supply curve shift leftwards. So where's my new equilibrium? Here. Okay, E1 at higher price and lower quantity. So I want you to do comparison between the initial point and the new point. So write the final outcome. What is the final outcome here? Okay, price becomes higher, right? Higher equilibrium price and lower equilibrium quantity. Or you can just write higher price and lower quantity. I'll give full marks as well. Okay, no need to write equilibrium also can. Just write higher price and lower quantity. You must write final outcome. When you draw any graph, after you shift, make sure you write the final outcomes. At least 2 marks there though. Okay, so that's the answer for the first question. Second one, a rise in income tax. Income tax affects on consumers. So a rise in income tax will reduce your purchasing power or reduce your disposable income. So you are not able to consume as much as before. So demand shift leftwards. Okay, so if I were to draw y-axis, x-axis, origin, price, quantity, okay, demand curve, and supply curve. So in nature, this is the equilibrium. At this price, at this quantity. Okay, so income tax affects consumers, so it affects demand curve. So demand curve shift leftwards. So you can see now we put everything into applications. We see demand and supply graph together. Okay, so this is E1. Okay, demand curve shift leftwards to this point, E1. So price becomes lower, quantity becomes lower. Okay, so make sure you mention the final outcome, lower equilibrium price and lower equilibrium quantity. Okay. Okay. Subsidies. Okay. Subsidies is like financial assistance. It's usually being given to the producers directly. Okay. So we talk about subsidies. The intention is to reduce cost of the production and to increase outputs. So when I say increase outputs means supply will shift rightwards. Yeah. So if I were to draw it on the diagram, okay. So first of all, I can just draw here. Okay. Y-axis, x-axis, okay, origin, my price, my quantity, my demand curve, and my supply curve is my equilibrium. Okay, at this price, at this quantity. Okay, so it affects supply curve. Supply curve shift rightwards. Usually subsidy is to make things more affordable for people. Okay, so supply curve shift rightwards. So from E to E1 over here, in which the price becomes lower and the quantity becomes higher. That fulfills the purpose of the subsidies, in which it makes the price lower equilibrium price and higher equilibrium quantity. Okay, these are the recap you need to know for tutorial 4, and we can move on to the questions ready. Today is very rush, sorry about that. Yeah. Because classes affected by holidays too much already. So easy, man, to do annotations on iPad. No need to go and erase the whiteboard. Yeah, really makes life easier. Okay, once you are done, let's have a look into the first tutorial question. Okay, so first tutorial question. Okay, indicate and explain if the statement is true or false. Illustrate the situation. So first of all, okay, because Coke and Pepsi are substitutes, a decrease in the price of Pepsi will cause the demand for Coke to decrease. Okay, we see if this is true first or not. So I will write. Okay, so now we look into Coke and Pepsi. They both are substitutes. So this is question one. Okay. Just now we are saying what's the questions? A decrease in the price of Pepsi. Okay, so I will put here. Okay, a decrease in the price of Pepsi. Okay, a decrease in the price of Pepsi will cause the demand for Coke to decrease. Okay, let's see if it's true or not. Pepsi becomes cheaper. Okay, so will people buy more Pepsi? They will, right? So quantity demanded for Pepsi increases. Okay, so will people still want to buy Coke? No, because people want to buy Pepsi already, why don't need to buy Coke? So the demand for Coke will decrease. Okay, so the demand for Coke will decrease. So this is my non-price factor here. Okay, so the demand for Coke decrease has nothing to do with the price of Pepsi. Okay, so this is what we call as non-price factor. Okay, so I can draw the diagram here. First, draw your y-axis and x-axis. 0, price, quantity, demand curve, and supply curve. This is my equilibrium. So when I draw this, that means I'm drawing the demand and supply for Coke. Okay, this is for Coke. Okay, demand decreases. Yeah, demand decreases, so demand shift leftwards. So here, E1. Okay, lower price and lower quantity. So the final outcome is lower increment price and lower increment quantity. Now we need to answer the question to say if it's correct or wrong. Okay, so this is what we can show on the diagrams over here. Okay, end up lower price and lower quantity. Okay, for Coke, because now people go and buy Pepsi already. Pepsi become cheaper, quantity demanded for Pepsi increase, and therefore demand for Coke has fallen down. Okay, so that is correct, the first statement. Okay, so a decrease in price of Pepsi will cause the demand for Coke to decrease. Yes, okay, this is correct. This initial shift in demand for Coke result in a lower price for Coke. Is it correct? Lower price for Coke, right? Lower price, correct, very good. This lower price will cause the demand curve for Coke to shift to the left. Lower price shift to the left. Lower price is a price factor. Price factor, how to result in shift? Cannot, okay? So lower price will never cause the shift of the graph. Why? Because it is a price factor, not a non-price factor. So the last statement is wrong. The statement is false. Okay, why? Because a change in the price of Coke will not change the demand curve for Coke. Okay, so back to our uh, the contents here, you can see the shift here. The shift here is because of the change of the price of Pepsi only. There's no any of the change in the quantity demanded for Coke due to the change in price of Coke itself. But if you really want to see any price factor here, there is one price factor over here. You see, today this part over here from this point E to point E1, okay, from this point E to point E1, do you realize that this part over here, there's a price factor for supply curve? Right now, you see, demand curve, we have shift. Supply curve, no shift, right? There's no shift in supply curve. But if you really want to see this one, there is a price factor for supply. Correct or not? Because price goes lower already, quantity supply goes lower. So they do have a price factor for supply, but not for demand. Okay, it's only to show the movement along the straight line from point E to point E1. But you don't really have to explain that, no worries. Okay, so therefore the statements, the front parts are all correct except the ending part. Okay, all these are correct, correct, but only the change in the price of cook result in the shift in demand curve, that one is wrong. Okay, so therefore if you refer back, so let me show it back here. Sharing first. Okay, and therefore, okay, so the statement is false. Okay, for this one. Okay, and then we move on to question number 2. Okay, now question number 2, you have to draw the graph. You can't just get the answers here because this is not very specific. Okay, so first of all, question 1, make sure you know that it's a false. Okay, you make sure you know how to explain it. Make sure you provide the diagrams. Okay, question 2, we need to draw a graph as well. Okay, so question 2 here, explain and illustrate using demand and supply diagram for each of the following statements. Now, question A, an increase in the demand for lobsters. Okay, demand increases due to changes in consumer taste, accompanied by a decrease in the supply of lobster because of bad weather. Okay, reducing the number of fishermen trapping lobsters. So assuming, now we have an assumption here, supply shift more than demand. Okay, supply has changed more than demand. Okay, so again, I can show on the iPad. Give me a while. So let me stop sharing this one. Okay, and then okay, so now the question. Okay, so okay, question 2. Question 2. Okay, let me see. Increase in demand and a decrease in supply. Supply shift more than demand. Okay, so first of all, draw y-axis and x-axis. Okay, origin, price, quantity. Okay, demand curve and supply curve. This is my equilibrium. Price, quantity. Okay, an increase in demand and a fall in supply. Supply shift more than demand. Okay. So an increase in demand. So first of all, I draw an increase in demand first. But the demand here not increasing a lot because supply will be the one that changing a lot, right? So an increase in demand. So that means demand shift rightwards from E to E1. Okay. So that's the first part, an increase in demand curve. Okay, then a decrease in supply. Okay, a decrease in supply. So that means supply curve was, because now we have an assumption, supply shift way larger than demand. So supply decrease by a lot, like this. Okay, so supply shift a lot, shift leftwards. So now where's my new supply curve, demand curve, new supply curve, new demand curve. So this is my intersection here. Okay, 2. So it depends on your graph. Your price definitely will be higher, but the quantity it depends because sometimes the skills that you draw will be a bit different. It can be the same as the Q or it can be lower a bit like this. Okay, so one thing that's fixed is this one. The price definitely will become higher. your price will definitely become higher, but quantity here, it depends. It depends on how you draw. Okay, it can be the same as the black color one, or it can be lower. Okay, so therefore, the outcomes, final outcome is higher price. Okay, definitely is higher price. Quantity, it depends. It can be remain unchanged, or like in my one is lower equilibrium quantity. Okay. Any questions so far? All good now. Okay, once you're done, we can have a look into question 2B. Okay, so question 2B, if you refer to the question, studies have shown that smoking cigarettes can cause heart disease. So not good. Demand will fall already, right? So now we can write it here. Later, the demand will fall. Okay. Assume this is true. Okay. Smoking cigarettes can cause heart disease is affecting demand. Assume this is true and unexpected favorable weather has increased the tobacco harvest in North Carolina. Okay. So therefore, supply will increase. So assuming demand has changed more than supply, demand changed more than supply. Okay. Okay. So let's see what are the impacts. So same thing. Draw my y-axis and x-axis is 0, price. This is quantity. Okay. This is my demand curve. This is my supply curve. We have an equilibrium here. Okay, at this price, at this quantity. Okay, so now demand has fallen down because it will cause lung disease, right? So therefore, demand will change more than supply. So my demand will have to shift a lot. Okay. To here. Lower price, lower quantity demanded. Okay, now supply increases, but not that much. Okay, so supply will increase, but not that much. Okay, supply increases because of favorable weather. So where's my new supply curve and demand curve? So you find D1 here, S1 here. Where's their intersection? The intersection is here. Okay, so therefore, that's my new equilibrium, E2. So price will definitely become lower already. And quantity, it depends. So price becomes lower, quantity becomes here. Quantity, that one, it depends on how you draw. So quantity is not fixed. What is fixed is this one, P2. This one, not sure. It depends on your skill. Okay, so therefore, the final outcome, okay, lower price and lower. We compare between, when you compare between the new one, the new quantity and the old quantity, it becomes lower. Okay, lower quantity. Okay, and then we can move on to the next question. Okay, so remember for question number 2, you need to draw the diagram, then only you are able to see the impacts, or else you cannot just write the answers. Okay. Now question 3, this one I will just go through quickly with you. You can take a photos of the answers. Okay, so again here you draw demand and supply. You must draw both, not like the tutorial 3, you just draw one graph. So that means for example, okay, let's do one example here. Okay, I'm not saying about shifting both graphs, no, shifting one only. So for example, okay, we will take two examples for this one. Okay, so first question, a rise in the price of rival newspapers. So for example, we have newspaper A and newspaper B, rivals. Okay, so rivals. Okay, so a rise in the price of rival newspaper. So let's say price of A has increased, so quantity demanded for newspaper A will go down. Okay, no one will want to buy newspaper A anymore. Everyone will go to buy newspaper B. So the demand for newspaper B will increase. So how to draw this? Okay, regime, quantity, price, demand, supply, equilibrium, okay, quantity, price. Okay, demand increases. Okay, so the demand shift rightwards like this. Okay, you must have demand and supply curve together, then only you can see the impacts. Okay, so now this is my new equilibrium. Okay, so what's the answers? Higher equilibrium price and higher equilibrium quantity. Understand this one? Okay, do one more. Uh, a subsidy given, okay, a subsidy given to the newspaper, subsidy, okay, like what we have done just now, subsidies, okay, same thing, origin, price, quantity, okay, demand curve, and supply curve. So this is the equilibrium, okay, price. So subsidies affects what? Affects the cost. Okay, subsidies, okay, they reduce the cost and to increase the outputs. Why? Because they want to make the price lower, to reduce the price lower, to make things more affordable. So supply curve will shift rightwards to E1 here. Okay, price becomes lower, quantity becomes higher. Yeah, indeed fulfills the tension. Okay, lower price and higher quantity. Okay. One last example. More people finding news information from the internet. Okay, they are using internet. So now no one wants to go and read newspaper anymore. So demand decrease. Okay, quantity, price, demand curve, supply curve, equilibrium, quantity by price. So no one wants to read newspaper anymore because everyone go for internet. So when people find information from internet, then the newspaper, this is about the newspaper, the market for newspaper, okay, the demand will fall. So demand shift leftwards. Okay, from E to E1. Price becomes lower, quantity also becomes lower. Okay, that's how I answer the questions here. I want to talk a bit about question 4 and 5, because question 4 and 5 came out last year as the section B questions, right? So I want to talk about quickly about question 4 and 5. Yes. So sorry, a bit rushed for today's class. But yeah. Okay, so let's have a look into question 4. Okay, find the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity for the questions below. Okay, so you are being given the equation for quantity demanded and quantity supply, and we find the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So how do you do this? Now, this is already a bonus marks. Okay, really easy to score. So let me show you how to do. Okay, so now we are done with this one. Okay. So first of all, we write down the equation. Okay, so question 4a. Okay, quantity demanded equals to 20 minus 2p. Quantity supply equals to 5 plus 3p. Okay, so when we talk about equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity means what? Means that I want to find the market equilibrium. Okay, so therefore, I want to find my market equilibrium. So market equilibrium means my quantity demanded equals to quantity supply. Okay, so therefore, I do quantity demanded equals to quantity supply. 20 minus 2p equals to 5 plus 3p. Okay, so it becomes 15, 5p, then p equals to 3. Algebra, okay, this is simple algebra, okay, right? Okay, so once you get the answers ready, substitute to any of the equation. And price equals to 3. Okay, let's say I substitute into a demand equation. 20 minus 2p equals to 20 minus 2 times 3. So it will be 14 units. Okay, let's see if the answer is correct. 3 and 14. Yup, 3 and 14. Correct. Okay. Okay, then we do one more question for B. Try and do that. Do it together. Okay, so let's see the equation first. Okay, quantity demanded is 100 minus 5p. Okay, so I write down first. Quantity demanded equals to 100 minus 5p, and quantity supply is 25 plus 10p. Okay, try to do that together. Okay, and later on, what I will get is the answer is price equals to 5, quantity equals to 75. Let's see if we can get the answers. Okay, so I write down the equation first. Okay, now let's go back to here. Okay, so let's see if I can get the answers here. So everyone try and do this, see if you can get the answers. So this one, if come out in section B, it's really a bonus marks, right? 40 marks though, section B. So that's why I try not to fail lah. But she want to make it more hard. She want to make it more challenging this year, right? So that's why maybe this one no more in section B anymore. Last semester she came out this in section B, but still a lot of people screw up. Yeah, so try to score questions like this. Okay, so make sure you know how to get the answers. Okay, so quantity demanded equals to quantity supply. 100 minus 5p equals to 25 plus 10p. Okay, so do the algebra. Okay, then substitute to any of the equation. So let's say I want to use quantity supply equation. Any of the equation will also give you the same answers. Okay, correct answers. Okay, one last question, then we are done. Ooh, okay. So last question here. Okay, you just complete the diagram, complete the table. Okay, so therefore, first of all, you have price, you have quantity demanded and quantity supply. Okay, for example, let's say when the price is at 15, okay, when the price is 15, very cheap, okay, not expensive yet. So when the price is at 15, quantity demanded is 50 units and quantity supply is 35. That means a lot of people want to buy. There are 50 units of quantity demanded, okay, and only 35 being supplied. So what is this situation? Quantity demanded more than quantity supply is shortage. Shortage by how much? You use 50 minus 35 is 15. Shortage of 15. Okay, let's take one more example. When the price is at 18, the quantity demanded is 44, quantity supply is also 44. Neither shortage nor surplus. It's called equilibrium. Okay, zero. Okay, no equals to each other. Okay, let's say when the price is at 20, oh, expensive already. Quantity demanded become less, 40 units. Quantity supply becomes 50 units. A lot of people want to supply because profitable ma. So that would be a surplus. Surplus by how much? You use 50 minus 40 equals to 10. Okay. Lastly, if you have a look into the price of 22, become very expensive. Less people are willing to buy 36 only, but surplus quantity supply is 56. So there's a surplus of 20 units. How do you get 20? 56 minus 36. Okay, so later on, once you have this table, this info here, the answers here, you can plot into it as a diagram of supply. Yeah, so you draw your y-axis, x-axis, demand and supply curve, and then put that equilibrium is at here. At the price of 18, the quantity demanded equals to quantity supply at 44. Okay, this question 5, two purposes. One is just to show you how to calculate surplus and shortages. How do you really see the surplus and shortages? Okay, and second is how do you plot it into a diagram? How do you plot it into like this? Okay, so that's basically the question 5 here. So that's all I want to cover for tutorial 3 and tutorial 4. Yeah.